There's a chain around your neck, invisible to the eye, yet tighter than iron. You don't feel it until you try to break free. Lust. It promises freedom, pleasure, and power, yet in reality it's a master, and you are its slave. Every indulgence, every fleeting moment of satisfaction only tightens the grip, leaving you craving more yet never feeling fulfilled. You think you're in control, but every time you give in, it steals a piece of your soul. It's a silent thief, robbing you of your identity, your self-worth, and your ability to experience true connection. This isn't just about what you see in a moment of weakness. Lust is a system, a force that plants itself in your heart, twisting your desires, shaping your identity, and keeping you locked in a cage of illusion. The more you chase after it, the deeper you fall into a cycle that's nearly impossible to escape. But what if the key to freedom isn't in fighting the chains, it's in understanding the truth about them? What if the way out lies in realizing that the chains were never yours to wear in the first place? That the invisible chains, what lust really is. Lust is not just a desire, it's an invisible chain, one that silently wraps itself around your mind and soul, pulling you deeper into a cycle of addiction. At first it seems harmless, a fleeting thought, a casual indulgence, a momentary pleasure. But these moments build, layer by layer, until you find yourself imprisoned, unable to escape. Lust promises freedom, but in reality it binds you in chains of distraction, deception, and dependency. At its core, lust isn't about physical attraction or desire alone. It's a distortion of natural human connection, turning intimacy into a transactional experience, rather than an emotional, spiritual, and physical bond. When you give in to lust, you're not just fulfilling a need for physical pleasure, you're feeding a hunger for something deeper: validation, control, power, or a temporary escape from pain. This is the trick. It makes you believe that satisfying your desires will fulfill your unmet needs, but it doesn't. Every indulgence only leaves you feeling more empty, more disconnected from the true purpose of your life. What makes lust so dangerous is its ability to mask itself as something normal, even desirable. It's so ingrained in our culture, in the way we consume media, in how we form relationships, that we don't even recognize it as a force that controls us. It's always lurking in the background, subtle and persistent. Whether it's through social media, advertising, or entertainment, we're conditioned to see lust as a natural part of life, a right, even a source of power. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Lust steals your time, your energy, and your emotional resources. It keeps you distracted from your true goals, your relationships, and your potential. It teaches you to objectify others, and in the process, dehumanizes yourself. The chains are not just physical, they're mental and emotional. Lust chips away at your sense of self-worth, leaving you feeling isolated and disconnected from the world around you. The real danger of lust is that it keeps you running on a treadmill of satisfaction without ever reaching the destination. You think you're pursuing pleasure, but in reality you're running in circles, trapped in an illusion of freedom. The only way to break free is to see lust for what it is, a force that promises power but only leaves you enslaved. Once you recognize it, you can choose to remove those chains, one conscious decision at a time. The illusion of power. Lust presents itself as a source of power, an alluring illusion that convinces you that indulging in your desires grants you control over your life and circumstances. The more you chase after it, the more it seems to promise control over your emotions, your relationships, your success, and even your sense of self. But this belief is nothing more than a dangerous mirage, a trick played on your mind. In reality, the pursuit of lust does not give you power, it strips you of it. Every time you indulge in lustful thoughts or actions, you're not asserting dominance over your desires. Instead, you're giving up control to them. Lust doesn't empower you, it weakens you. It makes you a slave to the very thing you think you're mastering. What feels like control is actually an illusion, because it's your impulses, not your will, driving you. The more you chase this false sense of power, the deeper you sink into dependency. Lust, like a drug, creates a temporary high, a fleeting sense of accomplishment. But this rush is short-lived, and when it fades, you're left in a deeper hole, searching for the next fix. This cycle is not power, it's weakness in disguise. You become trapped in a perpetual need to satisfy an unquenchable thirst, constantly reaching for more, never finding true fulfillment. Consider this: people who indulge in lust may think they're in control of their lives, but their actions are governed by their need for pleasure, validation, or escape. They are constantly in reaction to their desires, constantly looking for external sources of gratification. True power, on the other hand, comes from within, through discipline, self-control, and the ability to make intentional choices aligned with your higher values and long-term goals. Lust offers none of this. It's a trap, designed to keep you distracted and disempowered. True power comes from mastering your own mind, not from being controlled by fleeting pleasures. When you learn to resist the temptation of lust, you reclaim your true strength. You stop being a pawn in the game and become the player. Lust may give you a momentary feeling of satisfaction, but the real power lies in the ability to choose a different path, one of self-control, clarity, and purpose. The illusion of power is just that, an illusion. Only through mastery of self can you unlock the true strength you seek. The price of pleasure. Lust, like any addiction, comes with a price, one that's rarely seen in the moment of indulgence. In the heat of desire, everything seems justified. The pleasure feels immediate, the satisfaction real, and the escape from reality powerful. But every time you give in to lust, there's a cost, even if it's hidden behind the mask of pleasure. At first, the price may appear small, a fleeting sense of gratification, a momentary rush, but with each indulgence, the price grows steeper. Lust doesn't just drain your time or energy, it erodes your mental and emotional well-being. Each encounter with lust leaves you more distant from your true self, creating a gap between who you are and who you could be. It's a slow, insidious process, and you may not even notice the change until it's too late. Mentally, lust begins to distort your thoughts and perceptions. It feeds into obsessive thinking, controlling your mind with fantasies that distract you from your real goal. This constant cycle of desire and temporary fulfillment leaves little room for clear, focused thinking. You're always chasing the next high, never taking the time to reflect, grow, or heal. Your mind becomes clouded with images and cravings that have no foundation in reality, making it difficult to focus on what truly matters: your aspirations, your values, your relationships. The more you feed this cycle, the harder it becomes to break free from. Emotionally, the price of lust is even more destructive. Each act of indulgence leaves you feeling more isolated, more disconnected from others. The fleeting pleasure of lust might satisfy in the moment, but it only deepens the emptiness when it's over. You begin to feel unworthy, detached from true emotional intimacy, and incapable of forming meaningful, authentic connections. Lust creates a false sense of intimacy, one that's shallow, transactional, and ultimately unfulfilling. It teaches you to view others as objects of desire rather than as whole, complex individuals, deserving of love and respect. Over time, this erodes your ability to experience true, vulnerable connection, leaving you alone in a world of fleeting, hollow experience. Spiritually, the cost is the most profound. Lust distorts your understanding of love, intimacy, and connection with others. It shifts your focus from the sacredness of human relationships to the objectification of others for your own selfish gain. This robs you of your spiritual peace, leaving you in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. True fulfillment isn't found in indulgence. It's found in self-control, respect for others, and the deeper connections that come from living in alignment with your higher values. The price of lust is never worth the temporary pleasure it offers. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of craving, never allowing you to break free and discover the deeper, lasting joy that comes from living a life of purpose, discipline, and connection. Lust may promise an escape, but it leads you further into slavery, away from freedom, away from truth, away from yourself. The cost is not just a moment of pleasure, it's a lifetime of missed potential, broken connections, and a soul that longs for something more. Lust and the modern soul. In the modern world, lust has evolved from a hidden personal struggle into something omnipresent and socially acceptable. The digital age has amplified its power, making it more accessible and more insidious than ever before. We're constantly bombarded by images, advertisements, and entertainment designed to trigger desire, shaping our worldview and conditioning us to view lust as an inevitable part of life. The lines between natural desire and obsession are blurred, and for many, lust has become normalized, a right rather than a struggle. But this normalization is a key part of the trap. The internet, social media, and endless entertainment platforms have created a perfect storm for lust to thrive. At the swipe of a finger, we have access to images, videos, and encounters that fuel the desire for instant gratification. Whether it's the curated perfection of social media influencers or the explicit content that's just a click away, lust has found a home in the pockets of everyone. It's everywhere, and the convenience makes it all the more dangerous. We think we can control it, manage it, or limit ourselves. But in reality, these digital platforms are designed to keep us hooked, to keep us coming back for more. The addiction is subtle, but relentless. Platforms feed us an endless stream of content that excites, teases, and entices. It's not always overtly sexual. Often it's more about fueling a sense of longing, comparison, and inadequacy. We are conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to our appearance, our desirability, and our ability to attract attention. We start to see our value as something that can be measured by likes, comments, and approval. Lust in this context becomes a tool not just for seeking pleasure, but for seeking validation. The constant feedback loop reinforces the idea that the more we indulge in lust, whether through viewing, fantasizing, or engaging in shallow encounters, the more power we gain. But this is a dangerous illusion. Lust distorts the soul. It teaches us that we are only as valuable as the pleasure we can give or receive. It convinces us that intimacy and connection can be reduced to a mere transaction of physical sensation. The constant stream of gratification prevents us from developing the deeper connections and self-awareness we need to experience true love and satisfaction. Instead of cultivating meaningful, emotional relationships, we settle for superficial encounters that leave us empty. Worse still, the more we indulge in this culture of lust, the more disconnected we become from our true selves. We begin to see ourselves through the lens of external validation, forgetting that real worth comes from within, not from external approval or momentary pleasure. Lust keeps us stuck in a cycle of seeking external gratification, while robbing us of the internal peace that comes from knowing and loving ourselves for who we truly are. The modern soul, constantly bombarded with messages that equate worth with physicality and external validation, is especially vulnerable to the enslaving power of lust. It's easy to get caught up in the endless cycle of desire, to believe that pleasure will bring happiness. But the reality is that lust only leads to a deeper sense of emptiness, a void that can never be filled by momentary satisfaction. Breaking free from this digital age lust requires stepping back from the constant noise, reevaluating your worth, and learning to reconnect with your true self. Only then can you begin to break the chains that modern culture has wrapped around your soul. Often it's not an isolated event that triggers lust. It's a culmination of emotional, psychological, and even spiritual wounds that leave us seeking fulfillment in the wrong place. The roots of lust stretch far beyond a simple craving for pleasure. They are entwined with insecurities, unhealed pain, and a deep, often subconscious need for validation. It begins early in life. Many people who struggle with lust have experienced feelings of inadequacy or neglect at some point. Maybe you didn't feel loved or seen for who you truly were. Perhaps you grew up in a home where affection was conditional, or where emotional needs were overlooked. These wounds often manifest as a hunger for external validation, a search for love or acceptance in the form of pleasure or recognition. And in an increasingly superficial world, lust becomes an easy outlet for these unmet needs. When we feel broken or less than, lust offers a temporary escape, a way to numb the pain, to fill the gap with something that promises to make us feel good in the moment. But the satisfaction is fleeting. Rather than healing the wounds, it only deepens them, because lust never truly addresses the root causes of our pain. It never fills the emotional void. It only makes us more aware of it. The more we turn to lust for comfort, the more distant we become from true healing. Psychologically, lust thrives in the fertile soil of insecurity and unaddressed trauma. When we don't have a solid foundation of self-worth, we start to view ourselves through the lens of external validation. We seek approval, attention, and affection through lustful behavior, whether it's in the form of casual encounters, fantasies, or even the constant need to be desired. The real problem is that these actions aren't based on genuine connection or mutual respect. They're based on a false belief that your value is determined by what others think of you in the moment. Lust also preys on the powerlessness we feel in our lives. It convinces us that indulging in desire can give us control over our emotions, our situations, and even our futures. But this is another lie. Lust doesn't give you power, it steals it. Each time you give in to it, you are letting go of your ability to choose a better path for yourself. You become a slave to the very thing you think you're controlling. The emotional, psychological, and spiritual fallout of this is profound. It's a cycle that feeds itself, growing stronger each time you indulge. The roots of lust are tangled in the things that make us human, our need for love, connection, and purpose. But the tragedy is that we often look for these things in all the wrong places. Lust at its core is a counterfeit of real intimacy. It promises connection, but delivers isolation. It promises fulfillment, but leaves you emptier than before. If you want to break free from lust, you must address its roots. Recognize the emotional and psychological wounds that make you vulnerable to it. Only when you heal those wounds, stop seeking validation in fleeting pleasures, and rebuild your sense of self-worth, can you begin to uproot lust from your life. The process of healing may be difficult, but it's necessary for reclaiming your true power. Only then can you cultivate a heart that seeks true love and authentic connection, rather than temporary, empty satisfaction. Lust is a dividing force, the brokenness of connection. Lust in all its deceptive allure promises connection, intimacy, and pleasure. But instead of bringing people closer, it creates deep divides. It separates you from others, from your true self, and from the deeper sense of unity we are meant to experience in authentic relationships. Lust isn't just a selfish indulgence, it's a dividing force that distorts and disintegrates the very fabric of human connection. The first and most obvious way lust divides is in our relationships. Instead of fostering mutual respect, understanding, and emotional intimacy, lust turns relationships into transactional encounters. It reduces human beings to mere objects of desire, stripping away their dignity and humanity. In a world fueled by lust, people are valued based on their physical appearance, their sexual desirability, or their ability to satisfy fleeting desires. This transactional view of others fosters an environment where true connection is rare, and love is replaced by consumption. We become less interested in truly knowing others, and more interested in how they can serve our desires, our fantasies, or our ego. Lust also isolates us from our true selves. When you chase after momentary pleasure, you disconnect from the deeper, more meaningful parts of your soul. Lust causes a distortion in self-perception. Instead of seeing yourself as a whole, valuable person, you begin to measure your worth based on external approval, or how others respond to your sexualized self. This only deepens the disconnect from your authentic identity. You start to wear a mask, one that reflects only the surface, the body, or the desire, but not the essence of who you truly are. Over time, this mask becomes your identity, leaving you disconnected from your purpose, your values, and the deeper satisfaction that only self-awareness and genuine connection can bring. Lust also distorts true intimacy, the kind that goes beyond the surface level of physical attraction. True intimacy is built on trust, vulnerability, mutual respect, and a willingness to understand another person on a deeper level. Lust, on the other hand, thrives on secrecy, deception, and selfishness. It never allows for the openness and honesty that real connection requires. Instead, it fosters a sense of competition, comparison, and performance. In a culture dominated by lust, people often approach relationships with the goal of getting something, rather than giving something, be it affection, understanding, or shared experience. This creates an atmosphere where genuine, selfless love is hard to come by, and intimacy is reduced to a series of hollow transactions. In the realm of sexual relationships, lust also introduces a dangerous cycle of objectification. Both men and women become objects to be consumed, their worth reduced to their physical attributes or sexual appeal. The beautiful, deep connection that intimacy offers is replaced by a series of disconnected, impersonal encounters. The true magic of love, which is based on mutual vulnerability, emotional closeness, and shared growth, becomes a distant memory, clouded by the superficial nature of lust-driven encounters. And then there's the spiritual divide. Lust blinds us to the deeper meaning of love and intimacy that transcends the physical and emotional. When lust takes control, it keeps us locked in the temporary, the fleeting, and the superficial. It robs us of the ability to connect with others on a spiritual level, where true love and deep connection thrive. Lust distracts us from the spiritual purpose of our relationships, to grow together, to heal, to support and to uplift each other as we move through life. Lust keeps us looking outward, focusing on momentary pleasure, while preventing us from turning inward, to the places where deep, fulfilling connection truly begins. The consequence of living in the grip of lust is a world where people feel more alone than ever, even when they are surrounded by others. It's a world where intimacy is transactional, love is conditional, and connection is fleeting. Lust divides us from each other, from ourselves, and from the deeper connections that bring true fulfillment. Breaking free from the dividing force of lust requires a shift in perspective. It means rejecting the idea that relationships are about consumption, and embracing the truth that they are about connection. It means moving beyond surface level attraction and learning to value others for who they truly are. And most importantly, it means recognizing that real intimacy is not about satisfying fleeting desires. It's about building lasting, vulnerable connections that honor the humanity and worth of both you and those you are with. Only then can you begin to heal the brokenness that lust creates and experience the true connection that is possible when love is nurtured with respect, understanding, and depth. It's a fight that demands strength, self-awareness, and an unyielding commitment to reclaiming control over your mind and life. Lust has a way of convincing you that you're in charge, that indulging in it is a choice, a freedom. But in reality, every act of surrender deepens your enslavement. The fight for freedom, then, is not just about resisting temptation. It's about taking back the agency over your life and the ability to choose a better path. The first step in this fight is acknowledging the power lust holds over you. Many people go through life in denial, believing that their struggles with lust are just part of who they are. But the truth is, lust is a learned behavior, a conditioned response to a world that glorifies fleeting pleasure. It's not your true nature. You are not defined by your desires. You are defined by the choices you make. And the moment you recognize that lust has a hold on you is the moment you can begin to break free. The next phase in the fight is developing self-discipline. This is where the real strength lies, not in the absence of desire, but in your ability to control your actions despite them. Lust thrives in an environment of unchecked impulses, where desires are followed without reflection or restraint. Self-discipline, however, is the power to pause, to think before acting, and to choose a response that aligns with your highest values. It's not about repressing desire. It's about redirecting it toward healthier, more meaningful pursuits. Instead of surrendering to lust's call, you learn to channel that energy into things that serve your growth, creative expression, physical health, building relationships, or pursuing your passions. Another critical aspect of the fight for freedom is self-awareness. Lust doesn't operate in a vacuum. It feeds off emotions like insecurity, loneliness, and frustration. Understanding your emotional triggers is key to breaking free. When you know what drives you toward lust, whether it's a sense of emptiness, stress, or seeking validation, you can start addressing the root causes rather than simply reacting to the symptom. This requires introspection and the courage to face uncomfortable truths about yourself. There's also a spiritual component to this fight. Lust thrives in a mind that is disconnected from its deeper purpose. When you view yourself as just a body to be satisfied, or a soul in constant search of fleeting pleasures, you lose sight of your true calling. To break free, you must reconnect with a higher purpose. Whether it's faith, service to others, or a deep desire for personal growth, the more connected you are to a sense of meaning beyond temporary pleasure, the easier it becomes to resist the urge to indulge in lust. The fight for freedom from lust is not a one-time battle, but an ongoing process. It's about daily choices, about rejecting the easy, fleeting path of pleasure in favor of the long, sometimes difficult road to self-mastery. The temptation may always be there, lurking in the background, but with each victory over lust, you gain greater clarity, peace, and control over your life. True freedom comes when you stop being driven by your impulses and start living by your principles. When you choose self-control over immediate gratification, you open the door to a life that is far more fulfilling and meaningful than any momentary pleasure could ever provide. The fight for freedom is not easy, but it is worth every struggle. In reclaiming your life from the chains of lust, you step into a realm of true power, purpose, and peace that cannot be shaken by the fleeting desires of the world. Redemption through resilience. The journey to freedom from lust is not a straight path. It's messy, difficult, and often filled with setbacks. But there's a power in persistence, a strength that comes from rising every time you fall. Redemption doesn't happen in an instant. It's a process, a series of small choices and moments of clarity that build toward a greater transformation. It's not about achieving perfection, but about resilience in the face of temptation and choosing a higher path time and time again. Resilience in the face of lust begins with self-compassion. Too often, people see their struggles with desire as a personal failing, something they should be ashamed of or hide. But the truth is, everyone has struggles. The key is not in denying your temptations, but in confronting them with the mindset that you can and will overcome them. Each time you slip up, you don't need to see it as a defeat. It's simply a chance to learn and grow stronger. Instead of allowing guilt and shame to keep you in the cycle of indulgence, use these moments as reminders of why you're fighting in the first place. Embrace the resilience that comes from picking yourself up and moving forward, rather than letting a mistake define you. The second element of resilience is a deep sense of purpose. Lust thrives in a mind that is idle, a heart that is searching for something to fill the emptiness. The more connected you are to your greater purpose, your passions, your values, your sense of destiny, the less power lust has over you. When you know why you're here, when you're driven by something bigger than momentary satisfaction, you begin to see lust for what it really is, a distraction. Your resilience grows from this clarity of purpose. Each time you choose to reject lust, you align more with your true self and with the life you are meant to lead. Resilience also requires the courage to build new habits, new patterns, and a new way of thinking. Lust often thrives in the routine of comfort and familiarity. When it becomes ingrained in your daily life, it becomes harder to break free, but with resilience you can forge new routines that support your growth. This might mean distancing yourself from people, places, or media that trigger your desires. It might mean practicing mindfulness, meditation, or other tools that help you stay grounded in the present moment. The more you actively create a life that supports your goals and values, the less room lust has to take root. And perhaps the most powerful aspect of redemption through resilience is the recognition of your inherent worth. Lust makes you believe you're nothing more than your desires, that your value lies in your ability to satisfy those desires. But redemption comes when you realize your true worth is not determined by your temptations, nor by what others think of you. It's inherent in who you are as a person. You are more than your impulses. You are more than your mistakes. Your value lies in your capacity for growth, for love, and for transformation. Through this process of redemption, you begin to see yourself as whole again. Every time you resist the pull of lust, you reclaim a part of yourself that was lost in the cycle of indulgence. Each victory is a step toward healing, a step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. And while the journey may never be fully free from temptation, the resilience you build through this process transforms you. You become stronger, more aligned with your true purpose, and more capable of living a life that reflects the values you hold dear. In the end, redemption through resilience isn't just about overcoming lust. It's about reclaiming your life. It's about stepping into your power, reconnecting with your true self, and living with a sense of purpose that allows you to reject the chains of temptation and embrace the freedom of self-mastery. Through resilience, you begin to experience the kind of joy, peace, and fulfillment that lust could never offer, because it's the joy of living authentically, of knowing who you are, and of living in alignment with your highest self. A vision of true freedom. True freedom isn't about indulging in every desire or chasing after fleeting pleasures. It's the liberation that comes from self-mastery, from reclaiming control over your thoughts, actions, and emotions. Lust may promise temporary satisfaction, but it keeps you locked in a cycle of craving where the momentary high is always followed by emptiness. Real freedom is about breaking free from this cycle and living in alignment with your deeper values and long-term goals. When you are free from lust, you're no longer defined by your desires. You have the power to make conscious choices based on your true self, not the impulsive whims of your body or fleeting fantasy. True freedom means the ability to pursue meaningful relationships, personal growth, and a purpose-driven life without being held hostage by your desires. It means finding fulfillment not in external validation or momentary pleasure, but in knowing your worth and living with integrity. This freedom is empowering. It's the ability to rise above distractions, to embrace a life that is rich in connection, purpose, and self-awareness. True freedom is not the absence of desire. It's the power to choose how to respond to them, and in doing so to live a life of peace, strength, and authenticity. The eternal fight, becoming the master of your own life. The eternal fight for mastery over your life is not about defeating external enemies. It's about mastering yourself. Lust, temptation, and impulse are always going to be part of the human experience. But the question is, who is in charge? The true battle lies within, between your desires and your willpower, between fleeting pleasure and long-term fulfillment. Becoming the master of your own life means taking responsibility for your actions and choices. It means rejecting the illusion that you are a victim of your urges, and instead choosing to rise above them. Every decision you make, every moment of discipline, builds your strength and solidifies your ability to live in control rather than in reaction. This fight is not easy, and it will not always be won in one swift victory. But each time you choose restraint over indulgence, you reclaim a piece of your power. True mastery comes from understanding that you are not defined by your desires or mistakes, but by your capacity for growth and transformation. You are in the driver's seat of your own life, and when you choose to lead with purpose, clarity, and self-control, you unlock a life of greater freedom, meaning, and fulfillment. The fight never ends, but it's worth every moment. Breaking free from the chains of lust is not a simple journey. It's a transformation. It's a process of rediscovering who you truly are beneath the layers of desire and distraction. Lust will always try to tempt you, always try to convince you that it holds the key to your happiness and fulfillment. But the truth is, it only keeps you trapped, bound by a false sense of freedom that ultimately leaves you emptier than before. The path to true freedom is not about denying your desires, but about mastering them. It's about understanding that your worth is not determined by fleeting pleasures or external validation. It's about reclaiming control over your mind, your heart, and your life. You are not a slave to your impulses. You have the power to choose, to change, and to rise above. Every step toward freedom, every moment of self-discipline, every time you reject the pull of lust, builds a new foundation for your life, a foundation rooted in purpose, self-awareness, and authenticity. It's a foundation that supports real connections, meaningful achievements, and lasting peace. True freedom comes when you realize that you are the master of your own life, not your desire. And remember, this journey is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about resilience in the face of temptation, about the courage to keep moving forward, even when the path gets difficult. You will stumble, but you can rise again. Each moment you choose a better path, you get closer to the life of fulfillment, peace, and true connection that lust can never provide. So take control, break the chain, embrace the power within you, and walk the path of true freedom, because it's not about what you want in the moment. It's about who you become when you master your life.